This is Mike with the Mixed Space. We've assembled some of the highlights from our 2022 monthly meetups just for you. We were able to cover some really amazing topics, like the voice of young people in public education, how we define success, and the role that capitalism plays in that. We even heard from experts in the field of disability justice. We even explored intimate relationships and the complexities of online dating. We also made space to celebrate and honor our ancestors. And every month, our community had new things to learn, like the concept of no-nouns, or getting a better understanding that as mixed people, we are 100% of all of our identities. We also learned that being mixed is enough and that mixed people are visionaries. While we are pausing our monthly meetups, we will still be here in 2023, and in the meantime, we're going to continue producing content. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, head on over to our YouTube channel for more video content and make sure to like and subscribe. I hope you enjoy this recap of the 2022 year. We are so excited about things to come. And from the Mixed Space team to all of you, love and solidarity. Enjoy the recap.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why I believe that yoga is so important when we do efforts, or any really mindfulness practice is important when we are doing the work of the colonizing, because it allows us to get into a space where we can see through the lens of another being's eyes. I feel like it really gets us into that space where we can be more compassionate. And when we connect with our breath, we are slowing down. We are really connecting back to our space of control. So not so much in like control and like we are going to control the environment, but controlling within like ourselves, so we can control more of our reaction to things. We can create more space to just like move through the ups and downs of life. We have like a boat almost to go through the river of life. Instead of always drowning, we are supported when we stay with our breath.
Yeah, I really appreciate your comment also, because I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of like thinking of a society, thinking of a group of people, and the way that colonizers and folks who have seats in power often tend to tokenize. So there's this idea of like, okay, there's a Black person in the space. I mean, the TED talk that Kimberly Crenshaw gave, like, talked about this specifically. It's like you have a Black person in the space and you have a woman in the space, but you don't have a Black woman in the space. And that intersection, that crossover right then and there, it's like if we aren't naming those specifically, then we still perpetuate blind spots. We're still allowing folks to not be seen and not be centered and not be heard.
When society sees us, well, some members of society sees us, we're discriminated against. Women in particular are discriminated against because automatically the value of what they see based on our body parts is how society deems and defines what a woman should be. Living with a disability, and particularly living at the intersection of being Black, female, and disabled, I have seen and witnessed all of the discrimination biases that I could possibly witness. And it was because of all of the assaults and all of the messages and all of what I saw throughout the decades that divas had to be born.
I would say that for me personally, it's definitely not something that I would prefer to start the conversation with, but every time someone will literally come up to me and be like, what are you? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of unescapable, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really want to
call out. Oh, sexy Lily.
Yep, nope, you go.
No, but I think this is, also, I just want to call out the amazing stuff that's being dropped in the chat right now, like April Rain, Madeline, everyone who's commenting. You guys are like, there's just so much gold. And I feel like there's also this thing too of like, whose eye you catch. Like, I'm taking this from a comment, but also like I've experienced this. Like, it's really interesting because I think we've been talking about it here. On a dating app, I'll notice that I match more with men or women of specific like diasporas, which is so interesting to me because I'm not I love people. I love everyone. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, if you're hot, you're hot. Like, let's get together, like whatever. But it's interesting who I consistently match with. And my cats are having a situation, but hey, stop it. But it's just really interesting because, like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, it messes with me and my brain now, how I'm being perceived, because it's like, if I'm seeing a consistency of like, well, this specific type of person seems to really love me, I'm getting these kind of comments. Well, what does that mean? You know, now I'm starting to be like, okay, well, can I only attract this type of people? Like, if I catch someone's eye, like, there is as unfortunate as it is, there seems to be this trend of like, I can catch X amount of people's eyes, but this type of demographic is going to make this comment. I'm already prepped for it. This person is going to like flirt with me and then not go further. And I don't even want to make those stereotypes, but they seem to be happening. And it's so weird to me because now I'm starting to tell myself in my brain, like, is it because I'm Latina? Is it because I'm white enough to pass off as like a white Latina, but I'm still Latina? So I'm like acceptable to like the abuelitas? Like, what is it?
And actually everybody's mixed, but most people don't want to do the work. So we are the visionaries in the space. That's all I'm saying.
All of us to remember, I've mentioned this in the Mixed Space platforms before, and I tell this to my son who has a Filipino mom and an indigenous father. You're not parts of us. You are the whole of each of your parents and all of your ancestors. We're 100% of all the things that created us, not bits and pieces of them.
So many people are mixed more than they even believe. And I think for me, where the healing started was when I started to actually embrace that I actually was mixed. And that it was like, I was not going to call myself one thing or another because sometimes I just didn't feel like that. So like, then I started calling myself mixed, and then I could go into that understanding of myself.
I use no nouns. So essentially, for those that don't know what no nouns is, I identify as Eva and not my gender. I feel like a lot of times we have a lot of pressure to fit a box. And if we don't fit the box, even if we identify within a box, I just don't need that pressure.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the just my name thing, because it would be so easy if people would address each other by their names first, right? That's really your first, usually the first thing you share with someone is I'm so-and-so,
And there's still so much power in your name. And I feel like there's a difference between your chosen name and your given name. And I feel like a lot of us who have accepted our given names have to find an identity around that name that we had no say in, versus if you choose your name and you can change your name, I feel like there's more power. Like, this is who I am. This is my identity.
Should youth have a voice in their own education?
I think there's a lot of attachment to how things are taught, right? And there's not a lot of imagination and partnership with students to really customize and really develop how schools should look like. When we think about like the goal of schools, and hearing from the team, it was just like, it should be customizable. It should be trying to figure out what are you good at? Like, what are your limitations, right? Maybe not just for labor, but how to access your world, how to develop community, right? And I think it's surreal, and I think it's strange that in a school where it's mostly students, young people, right? There's not a lot of young people at the table making decisions, and we really don't think about them as partners.
Thank you so much for that, Carmen. Yeah, that's exactly it, right? At schools that I worked at and trainings that I used to do with teachers and school staff, we used to say, are you doing things to students? Or are you doing things with students, and changing your mindset? Because why can't a young person, like Carmen was just elaborately saying, have some input in their life, and learning is part of life. So why can't you have some input in that, right?
That definitely really resonated with me specifically. Like, wouldn't it be fun if schools taught us stuff that actually would benefit us in life?
I feel like if we are able to teach kids, like even as young as 4 or 5, emotional intelligence patterns and behaviors and stuff, we would be so much better off when it comes to empathy and just like really basic stuff like that.
I think it really sucks that people are fleeing away from the public school system. But again, like they don't offer variety within their systems, which I think would be really cool. Because I'm a coalition leader, and what we're trying to do is build emotional intelligence in schools by creating trauma-informed or trauma-resilient schools, by training teachers to be trauma responsive and having mindfulness rooms in the schools, and having trauma responsiveness be like where they lead their education from, as opposed to an afterthought.
I also grew up Orthodox Muslim, so there's a lot with my hair. When I took my scarf off and I was out with curls, I had white women would just touch my hair and go like, "Oh, you have beautiful curls. At least it's not nappy." And at that time, I didn't really know why did I feel offended. Like, okay, thank you for the compliment, but it does not sound like one.
I find the best thing is just honesty. Is if you do feel the need or you feel the urge to compliment someone, just being honest and saying, "I hope this doesn't come across weird, but I just wanted to tell you that your hair is beautiful," or "I just wanted to express my appreciation. You look wonderful." Just honesty of first stating your fear of how it could happen, and then proceeding with the compliment. That can help a lot with taking down people's defenses.
Pursuing your passion and pleasing your family draws a thin line, but success can be defined on your own terms. So, who has something they want to add about today's topic, maybe in connection to the image and what you see stated on there? Or maybe you just want to ask a question or share a brief story with us.
If the definition of success is to be a doctor or a lawyer, it's definitely part of the patriarchal, white, capitalist society. And as coming from a mixed race family, I will never be successful in a white patriarchal society. It's just not a possibility. And growing up, women and people of color were certainly not allowed to become doctors or lawyers.
So when you had spoken earlier about like lawyer, doctor, engineer, like that's just
Why is it always the same? It's like a blueprint, right? Everybody, doctor or a lawyer.
so those were the only terms I heard at home. And so I was supposed to do, I chose doctor, but then I veered and went off into therapy. but yeah, that was, it was like, that was supposed to make good on the sacrifices that they made. Like that was supposed to be the guarantee. But in actuality, that's just the whole premise of the states and like colonialism and all of that stuff. Like it's just to get more bodies in the system, you know, to be working. And so by what I personally have found is that by self-exploring and looking at my own gifts, like that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be creating. We're supposed to be passionate and connected with our passions, and to help others to do the same, so that we're actually living as opposed to just being bodies in the system and not having control in our lives.
How ancestors have helped like our well-being. We've heard it a couple times from comments today, but it's really resonated with me is that, especially as a mixed person, but also just a person in the world, I feel like sometimes there's a lot of this feeling of not belonging and wanting to belong. I feel that from a mixed perspective, but I know that it's so prevalent now, just like, especially with, the messaging of like, to be successful, you have to do this, or to look like this, or to whatever. And I think, something that has really come across in the shares and that I've experienced as well is that, like we always belong with our ancestors. We really, really do. And there's never a place where we don't belong, because we are from somewhere. We have people that are like looking out for us, whether they're here or not here anymore. And, I think that it's such a beautiful thing to remember that, we're never really alone and that we always belong. And in a way, I'll share just briefly, something that's really helped me with my mental well-being is reconnecting with family, even recently, even this year, and having family members tell me that I look just like them. That's never been the case for me because I've grown up with people who haven't looked like me. I've been usually sometimes the darkest in family settings. So to have someone say, you look like me and your nose looks like this person's and this is Thea, and like such an amazing experience. So something that I heard recently is that we are someone's ancestor, like us right now, present day, are going to be someone's ancestor. And I think that's such a cool idea too. And it makes me feel really, really grounded.
There was this concept I heard of, it is not the responsibility of BIPOC people to educate the majority, and in the United States, this case, white Americans, on the history of racism and how to be anti-racist. And I think, especially since I was studying international studies, this was always in my head. And so I always had this desire to like fix my mom's side of the family. And one thing I've learned is that there's times where there's been times in the past where I've talked to my mom's sisters and there's certain ignorances. And they're like, well, why don't you just teach us or these things? And I realize the emotional toll that has on me, feeling like I'm advocating for all people of color because, for them, they lump people, and me also saying I can't speak to that experience, and that we're supposed to be this reference point in an encyclopedia and Wikipedia of like race relations for the United States, because we're the walking solution. We created post-racism, but we didn't. And so giving yourself grace when you do get frustrated and practicing, the practices you're going to use to communicate better, but also not feeling guilty if you like say, I can't do this. And that's okay.
But I can connect with that. I'm someone who left my home state and all of my biological family, moved to another state, and I had to build community in order to make my chosen family so that I could feel at home, right? So I completely connect with that.
Like my idea of like who home and who I'm comfortable with and who is my family. And that's like the people who actually make an effort to be a part of my life.
Home isn't as much about the house as it is about what are the roots of the plants feel like and what does the air smell like. And I remember my grand teaching me when I was just old enough to open a door, that every morning to go out and smell what the air smells like.
My physical apartment home is still here, but the homes that I've really felt connected to throughout my life, I've lost slowly over these past couple years. And that felt literally like pieces of me are just gone, more so than my actual like daily residence or like daily home.